So, how's Overwatch?
When Overwatch 2 first launched, I was very optimistic. The promise of a new campaign, fresh heroes, and a shift from 6v6 to 5v5, it really did have me hooked, but as the seasons rolled on and reality kind of set in, Overwatch 2 wasn't quite the leap forward that I'd and many other people had hoped for. It felt more like an update disguised as a sequel, and some of the changes like aggressive monetization and smaller team sizes didn't end up sitting very well with me, and that goes the same for many other people. Now, that being said, the game isn't a total failure. There have been recent updates like the return to 6v6, new game modes like Stadium, and map queues which are pretty cool. All of these new features have kind of made Overwatch 2 feel alive for me. Coming back to the game after a break is fresh and exciting once again, but you have to look back and think the journey up to this point has been fairly rocky. It's definitely worth asking, how did Overwatch go from a cultural sensation to a game that's struggling to even hold its own audience? And that's a question that I really want to answer today, so let's dive in.
Yo, I'm going in! I'm going in! No!
Back in the day, I played Overwatch 2 in its earlier days. Honestly, it was my first proper hero shooter experience, and Black Ops 3 didn't quite scratch that itch. From the moment I jumped in, I was hooked. The game's colourful characters, tight mechanics, and team-based objectives felt really fresh and addictive. And I really cannot express to you the amount of hours that I spent grinding for loot boxes just to get some amazing skins. The blend of heroes and distinctive abilities and the variety of maps for the time made every single match feel different, and there was so much diversity in the way that you could play the game. You could be Reinhardt one round and Widowmaker the next. The balance between damage, tank, and support classes were delicate, but Blizzard at the time nailed it in a way that few games had done before. And that's not necessarily something that you could say for today's Overwatch. And that really does get you thinking, because there were plenty of games before and after Overwatch, but Overwatch had something unique going for it. Its world was bright and inviting, the heroes felt like they had real personalities, and the game was really fast and tactical. And you can't forget that maps were designed with verticality and choke points and flanking routes and offered real layers of strategy that something like Call of Duty or Battlefield just wouldn't offer. Plus, the art style and animations gave the game a charm that just kept people coming back. It wasn't some grounded, gritty, realistic team shooter. There was something satisfying about unlocking a legendary skin that just looked absolutely bizarre. And of course, you can't forget about the ultimate abilities, which are unique to every single character. And with that hero roster, while not massive, was well curated. Each hero brought distinct playstyles, and switching between them allowed for fluid and dynamic game experiences. This wasn't just about kills, it was also about synergy and working with your team effectively to get that win. And this is where we get the shift to Overwatch 2. When it was announced, I was excited. Many other people were excited. The promise of a PvE campaign was huge. A chance to dive deeper into the lore and the characters that Blizzard had created was really exciting, and new heroes meant new playstyles and way to approach an objective, and of course you can't forget the change from 6v6 to 5v5. It sounded like a way to speed up gameplay and make things feel a little bit more balanced. And I jumped into the first 2 seasons with massive amounts of enthusiasm. I was grinding that battle pass like no tomorrow, testing and evolving the new meta, and overall just having a blast with it. But as time passed and I got to the 2nd season and the 3rd season, things didn't quite pan out as I expected. The campaign was essentially nowhere to be found apart from a paid DLC, new heroes arrived very slowly, and the change from 6v6 to 5v5 felt more divisive and really set the game back. It wasn't that revolutionary mechanic that everyone thought it was going to be. I'm not going to lie to you, some people really did love the faster paced gameplay, because with the lower player count, that meant that your impact on a match meant more than what it did in Overwatch 1. But of course, I can't forget to mention that some characters have also seen some rework, so they're different from their counterparts in Overwatch 1 with new abilities or new ways to approach movement systems. Some characters have just been overhauled slightly. And although that's jarring to start off with, it definitely was for me, over time you get to realise that their new abilities actually add new levels to gameplay. But nonetheless, it was a weird change, but then again, that's just the way that Blizzard is changing up the meta progressively over time. And after all these changes and small little tweaks, over time this kind of compounded. It felt like the game lost its identity and definitely made Overwatch feel like it was just going in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Go for the jump. Oh!
I believe that one of the biggest turning points for Overwatch 2 is its monetization. It was a big frustration when it came to Overwatch 2, and I know that a lot of my friends feel the exact same way when it comes to Overwatch 2. It's just such a grind. Overwatch 1's loot box system, while controversial, at least allowed players to earn cosmetics through play. And initially at Overwatch 2's launch, it didn't have loot boxes. Instead, it leaned heavily into the battle pass and premium purchases, locking many heroes and skins behind paywalls, and suddenly for me the game felt like it drifted away from being a fun competitive shooter to just feeling more like a grind fest, and if you didn't pay then you were either left behind or you'd have to grind away your soul just to get the new items or characters. There has been a big shift in Blizzard's approach to its community in regards to cosmetics and all sorts of things like that. For example, even though initially new heroes were locked behind battle passes or having to wait a certain amount of time, you now just get them for free up front, which is fantastic and the approach that Blizzard should have definitely taken when they launched the game in the first place. And I'm guessing the only reason they did that was just to justify the battle pass. And Blizzard heard the calls of many people just asking for the loot box system back, and they did. They brought the loot box system back in full force, and you can attain them by just doing challenges, which is absolutely fantastic and means that players don't have to shell out in-game currency just to be able to get new cosmetics, even if it's very rare. But wholeheartedly, it is a really nice change to see that Blizzard has kind of turned heel on these kind of predatory mechanics. Even though battle passes are still a thing, now you can just unlock the battle pass's top tier skins by shelling out some in-game money, which I think is fair enough. It's just one of those things. If you didn't pay for the battle pass then and you just want that skin, then go for it. If you want to pay for it, you do you, but at least the option is there. Throughout the entirety of Overwatch 2's run, now that they've got these new mechanics, it doesn't strip away everything that Overwatch 2 used to be. The game used to feel less of a celebration and more just like a massive cash grab, just pushing people to shell out tons of money for battle passes and skins. And so it's good to see that Blizzard are leaning more into community feedback and making changes that people really want to see.
Are you fucking kidding me? It's literally what I was trying to fucking think was such a fucking...
Oh, where were you guys at?
Overwatch 2 players for a brief amount of time did genuinely step away from Overwatch 2. There were tons of other games that were coming out that more represented what Overwatch 1 used to be. Something like Marvel Rivals was full steam ahead in competing with Overwatch 2. And many were setting Marvel Rivals up to be the Overwatch 2 killer, but time has gone past, and it's clear now that each game has their own player base. Some people just prefer Marvel Rivals and so deviated from Overwatch over to that game. But basically, on the down low, Overwatch 2 still does have more players than Marvel Rivals. Marvel Rivals is just such a new property that I think over time it will get more of that brand awareness when even more characters drop, and they have been dropping characters very quickly. But until they reach a point where it's absolutely bloated with content, I'm not too sure it will compete with Overwatch 2 in a very serious way. Because Blizzard has been actively addressing community concerns through regular updates and new features, they are now listening to the fans, essentially. They want to make the game the best that it can be to relive those Overwatch 1 days. Stuff like 6v6 coming back, new modes like Stadium, and perks and map queue systems have all been very well received, and many players really appreciate this variety, not to mention that queue times have gone down drastically. And this is the thing, it's a competitive shooter, so no one is ever going to be happy. There is still some challenge, and it all really boils down to hero balancing. With new heroes, it obviously changes things up, it changes the status quo, and introducing new game modes means there's going to be some balance shifts, and Blizzard is really trying to make sure that Overwatch 2 is the most polished it can be, because a game like Marvel Rivals dropped and made Blizzard shake in their boots, because they had a feeling that people were just going to completely abandon Overwatch 2 and just move to Marvel Rivals, which granted, some people have done. But with these changes, Blizzard is slowly kind of luring people back into Overwatch 2, saying, hey, we're back to how we used to be, we're making changes, we're listening, and that's something that I feel like a lot of people really do appreciate. It's just such a shame that Overwatch 2's roller coaster has been so up and down. It's not been steady, or it's not been on an incline. It's been so divisive over its time since its release window. Even just the game coming out as essentially an update and making Overwatch 1 completely obsolete and unplayable was divisive enough, but they never stopped. And so it's just really nice to see that Blizzard are just putting the brakes on a little bit and making sure that they're in the right gear before moving forward. And genuinely, after coming back to Overwatch after such a long break, I felt that spark again. I felt that energy that I felt during Overwatch 1. I felt that Blizzard actually wanted to make Overwatch content. Granted, it's not perfect, but Overwatch 2 is evolving into a game that many people actually hoped for.
I swear, if we...
Come on. He's not gonna touch though.
So Overwatch 2 is essentially a cautionary tale to the industry. No matter how beloved a game is, complacency, poor communication, lack of transparency, and aggressive monetization can really erode even the strongest fan bases and make them look elsewhere. And for people who spend so long playing Overwatch 2, they just want respect and meaningful content, not to mention a game that evolves with them, not one that just treats them like walking wallets. And that being said, Blizzard is taking steps to roll that back a little bit, but Blizzard's missteps show how hard it is to balance innovation over player expectations, and how quickly a game can just lose momentum if the community starts to feel ignored. For me personally, Overwatch 2 still holds potential. With continued updates, thoughtful community engagement, and better content pacing, it really could recapture the magic that made the original so special. And coming back to Overwatch after some time away, I can genuinely see that the game is learning from its mistakes, slowly growing stronger and stronger over time. I'm glad that I gave it another chance, I genuinely am, and I hope others do too, because they can see how much Overwatch 2 has evolved over time. And I 100% believe that if Blizzard plays its cards right, Overwatch could really be the big massive game that it used to be, but it will take work, and they are putting in the work. But most importantly, they just need to listen to their community. Making changes like quicker queue times, map queues, 6v6 returning, and even new additions like perks meant that the game felt fresh once again, and it's that kind of innovation that makes people want to come back and play. So if Blizzard sticks in this direction, I have no doubt in my mind that one day, maybe not soon, but someday, Overwatch 2 will return to the former glory that Overwatch once had. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy this, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.